Hello, everybody. Alrighty then. So here we are. Um, Hope everybody had a good week, and hope everybody caught some of our panel show last night. Did kind of get into a bit of a lively discussion towards the end there. So with that, we're gonna give people a chance to come in here. I need to actually step away because I just remembered I got to do something. So I will be right back, but I will put some music on while as we wait for more people to show up. Be right back. Alrighty then. So I hope everybody had a good weekend. We were saying there. Um, let's see. We're just coming up on 2 minutes here, so we're still waiting to see if people show up. And it looks like somebody has already. Hey, Jr. Hi, Hail, Zenu and Zena, socialist, social. Okay, what's social dish? All right, so we got at least one other person now. Of course, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help us out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So we got at least one other person in here now. So I guess we can kind of, and we're coming up on the 3 minute mark. So I might as well just talk a little bit about what's on tap for tonight. So we're gonna go over 4 articles tonight from Bounding into Comics. I'm gonna get caught up here a little bit, or at least up to just before today, including Bob Iger, Walt Disney Company CEO Bob Iger finally coming to terms with the fact that when you go woke, you go broke. An article about that. We also will be going over an art. Let's see what other articles we're going to look at tonight. Let's see. It's in the. Greg Weisman, um, television producer, who's of course his among his credits include Young Justice, Spectacular Spider-Man, and of course going all the way back to the '90s, Gargoyles. Greg Weisman acknowledging that he's been woke even before he ever heard the term. So we'll look at that. YouTuber Dane is taking shots at Chuck Dixon, apparently accusing him of being anti-Semitic. I'll be looking at that. And also, Marvel Comics, in another attempt to try to another attempt to kind of salvage themselves, they're looking to relaunch the Ultimate Spider-Man series. That plus, of course, the wrestling wrap up and this day needs history. With that, now that we got all that out of the way, why don't we go? We're at the 4.5 minute mark now, so might as well start and get going here. I said, if anything we talk about tonight grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. Try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. But with all that being said, let's go here. Alrighty then. So here's the first article we're going to go over tonight. Report: the Walt Disney Company CEO Bob Iger wants to, in quotes here, quiet the noise regarding culture war issues because they are, quote unquote, not healthy for Disney's business. Like, you're just now coming to that conclusion? I guess maybe he's tired of losing money because, it's the old insert foot into mouth syndrome, right? Yeah. When you sit there and when you alienate half of the country, when you start insulting people from flyover country, that's bound to happen. Article by John F. Trent, published back on the 21st, which was last Thursday, in the comic books, movies, television, and theme parks. So why don't we go ahead and get going here on the article? Let's see if you guys have said anything yet. Of course, I probably haven't said much, so I guess you wouldn't as of yet. So let's get into this then. A new report claims that the Walt Disney Company CEO Bob Iger wants to, in quotes here, quiet the noise surrounding culture war issues because he does not see them as healthy for the company's business. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're finally coming to that conclusion, dude, after like 2 years of inserting yourself into such issues as, the parents' rights bill in Florida and losing your autonomous status and all that. It took you this long to realize that, huh? And the fact that I think, a lot of people from probably the Midwestern part of the country don't want to have anything to do with you anymore because of your stances on things. There's that old saying that you shouldn't really talk, politics with friends, with or acquaintances, which is true. True to a certain extent. I mean, it's okay if you tend to be more like-minded, but if you have people who have differing views, it can become real nasty real quick. So, and of course, Disney, due to their venture into the culture war issues, has been hurting the last 2 or 3 years here at least. So, Needham financial analyst Laura Martin recently attended a 120-person investor event at Walt Disney World and reported on September 20th that that was last Wednesday, I believe, that during this event, Bob Iger explicitly stated he wanted to, in quotes, quiet the noise on culture war issues. In Martin's report, which she provided to Bounding in the Comic, she explained that Iger believes, quote, content should be entertaining, not issues focused. Really? Well, let's hope that that does get sent down the line, including Disney Channel with programs like The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder. Furthermore, she detailed that Iger's, quote, key goal is to, in smaller quotes, quiet the noise because culture wars are not healthy for, in bracket there, Disney's business, unquote. Yeah, I would say that the last 2, 3, 4 years here have proven that. Every time they've inserted themselves into the discourse, it's ended badly for them. It's like that's kind of what happens when you basically kind of flip the bird to half of your customers and basically tell them that, despite your protestations, you're going to shove your ideology down their kids' throats, and there's not a thing you can do about it. When the parents will say, "Oh, you bet you don't think I can do something about it? I just won't give you my money anymore." Let's see how long that attitude lasts once you start losing money. You make on average, let's say $200 per person. When that gets cut down to about $100, let's see how long that lasts. This report echoes comments Iger made to CNBC's David Faber back in July. Faber asked the executive, quote, "What about DeSantis, who's going to be on the hustings, so to speak, for the next year, and he's made this part of his campaign attacking Disney, saying it's a woke corporation." In quotes here, we put the company on a pedestal, but they've really embraced the idea of getting the sexualized content in the program line that I'm not willing to cross. I mean, that's what he said. I quoted DeSantis there. How do you respond to that? I remember we also saw we also talked about the other day how, another children's program, Paw Patrol, how its spinoff, decided to introduce the first quote unquote non-binary character as well. So, you know, Iger replied, quote, "Well, so far what we've said publicly is that we are concerned that he has decided to retaliate against the company for a position the company took on pending legislation in the state. And frankly, the company was within its right, even though I'm not sure it was handled very well." Really? Maybe you should have just kept your mouth shut and just and instead of inserting yourself into the discourse, maybe you should have just kept your mouth shut and focus more on entertaining your clientele than inserting yourself into a political discourse that in red Florida you are not going to win. It was it was within its right to speak up on an issue constitutionally protected right of free speech, which is true. Now that part is true. He has a right. They do have a right to make a statement on it, but with that same right comes also, also comes the rights of others. If they don't like your position on something, they don't have to support you in the process. Um, um, and to retaliate against the company in a way that would be harmful to the business was not something that we could sit back and tolerate. And so we have filed a lawsuit to protect our First Amendment rights there and to protect our business friends. Well, first off, I don't think that suit would really go anywhere because you still have a right to say what you still have a right to have your opinion. You still have a right to make it known. You also have the right to reap both the rewards and the consequences of said decision, right? Um, you know, um, the thing is that it's not as much, what DeSantis did to you that's hurting you. It's the fact that you alienated half of your clientele because of the position you took. That part's not DeSantis' fault. That's, now granted, yeah, he took away your autonomous standing. That meant that he took away the tax breaks you got because, but, you know, um, but that's not. It's one of those things where if you feel that way, then why would a state want to support? If a state doesn't feel that's morally right, they're not going to continue to support you in that manner. He then added, quote, the other issues that you referenced, the last thing that I want for the company is for the company to be drawn into any culture wars. We've operated for almost 100 years as a company making product that we actually are proud of in terms of its impact on the world. I joke every once in a while, we're there to manufacture fun. Yeah. Well, I think that was Walt Disney's approach to now. From what I've heard from some people who've done a little bit more study up on this, Walt Disney, in his own right, for consider even for his time, was considered kind of left leaning to begin with. Okay, but he still kept his political ideologies and his dream of Disneyland separate. He never really tried to put any of his political ideology or put anything into the kids stuff that was inappropriate. All right. Yes, he may have been a little bit more left leaning, but he never crossed that line when it came to his business side. He knew better than that. Walt Disney knew better than that. People like Bob Iger apparently don't know that as well. So Iger would later add, quote, I don't really want to engage in the specifics except to say that it's not our goal to be involved in a culture war. Well, if that's the case, maybe you should just, grant, yeah, you do. I'm not saying, you don't have a right to exercise your right to free speech, but there do come, consequences to that. You have a right to free speech, but you also have the right to reap both the rewards and the consequences of that right of that exercise. So our goal is to continue to tell wonderful stories and have a positive impact on the world. We are a preeminent entertainer in the world, and we're proud of our track record there. The notion that Disney is in any way sexualizing children, quite frankly, is preposterous and inaccurate. I would disagree with that to a certain extent, because anytime you bring in such political discourse as as the alphabet agenda, that's exactly what you're doing. Okay, I've said this before, and it's not a straight gay issue for me. It's more just an overall moral issue, in that you should not be bringing anything in regards to sex in the whether or not you're straight or gay. Okay, this isn't like anti-alphabet agenda thing. I just think, me personally, I don't think that kids, and I think most people would agree with this, most reasonably intelligent people would agree with this. Kids do not need to know anything more about sex than the fact that boys have a penis and girls have a vagina. And that's a direct movie quote from Kindergarten Cop for anybody who may not have ever seen that before. So it's interesting to note that in his comments to CNBC, he made it explicit that he did not want to be involved in a culture war. But in Martin's report, it's merely about quieting the noise. In other words, he realizes that he's put his foot in his mouth for the last 2 or 3 years here, and every time he's done so, it's hurt their bottom line. Investors are probably not happy with him over it. I think overall, the board is probably not happy with him, because every time they've taken a position, a strong left-leaning position and have used it to try to put it into the cartoons and try to influence kids on it. It hasn't gone too well for them. Looking at Martin's report cynically, it's not hard to see that Iger wants to continue being involved in the culture war issues and actively pushing them through the company's content, its employee trainings, its sports coverage, and more. However, he just does not want the company's role in the culture role to be so prominent. He wants it suppressed. He wants it to be suppressed and quiet. In other words, he wants to act like a little. He wants to act like a little spy. He wants to be sneaky about it. He wants to just put these little things into the kids' programs to try to influence kids, and parents are not going to have that. Parents are going to be livid. You know, he doesn't want to make any big statements. He doesn't want the scrutiny of these decisions that he's making, but he still wants to be making these decisions. He still wants to be making these decisions, and he thinks people are going to be stupid enough. He said he doesn't want to be involved in the culture war. As I guess the difference between what he told CNBC and Martin's report, you kind of see it right there, in which, it's not that he doesn't want to be involved in the culture war. He just doesn't want the proverbial flaming torches hurled at him. Let's see. If you look at Martin's report more charitably, it would seem Iger does indeed want to remove the company from the culture wars that he embroiled it in. However, his words have so far not been followed by any action. In other words, what he's trying to do is he's trying to be a little more clandestine about it. He's trying to subvert parents. In other words, he doesn't want the hot spotlight on him, or on Disney, because he knows that, he already knows parents are kind of catching on to what's going on. And the parents will, ultimately, if Disney keeps pulling this stuff, will just turn off. They'll just flip to another channel, flip to something that they feel is more appropriate for their kids to watch, and not Disney. In fact, at the end of August, the company hired President Joe Biden's former National Traveling Press Secretary, Remy Yamamoto, to be the company's vice president of media relations for its television division. Variety reported that one of her main duties would be to, quote, oversee crisis communications and install issues-oriented messaging. Issues-oriented messaging. Code word for, I guess, propaganda? On the Disney Plus front, the company is still pushing the culture war agenda with their upcoming Percy Jackson and the Olympians series on Disney Plus. The series creator, Rick Riordan, recently defended his and the company's decision to replace a number of characters by claiming it was so, quote, that everyone could look at the series and see themselves. This is probably in the name of diversity. They've probably switched out the cast, basically eliminating or severely cutting all the white cast members so they could replace them with every other possible ethnicity, race, what have you. This so-called diversity agenda that Riordan espoused was exposed as a racist anti-white agenda by Emily Goldstein in a Thought Catalog article back in 2015. Goldstein declared, quote, diversity is about getting rid of white people, and that's a good thing. I'm extremely glad that the white race is dying, and you should be too. White people do not have the right to exist. Period. You know that right there sounds like a pretty racist statement to me. Emily Goldstein, that's her name. I wonder if she's white. With a name like Goldstein, you'd think she's probably of Jewish heritage, which would likely mean that she might be, she might be white herself. So is this a form of maybe self-hatred here? A little self-deprecation here? And Woody's here as Sin Fighting, or Sin Figuring, rather. Hail J.R. Exner and associates, Xenu and Xena. And of course, if you haven't already, if you can like and share the screen, see if we can get some more friendly people here, that'd be appreciated. Um, and just so people know, I just gave Sin Figuring a wrench because he's Woody, you know, so he had a wrench as Woody. So this is one of the other names he's using. I'm giving him a wrench here because now why he's having to use this one instead of his Woody ID, I don't know, but they are give him a rent. Normally, I'm not like into giving rent, just handing out wrenches here and there, but like just like their candy or something like that. But and Sin Figuring is I am Woody, and thanks, Mike. Yeah, no problem. Since obviously you're the same person as before, so if that's the case, then then if you have a wrenches with your Woody ID, then why shouldn't you have a one for your Sin Figuring ID as well? You know? Anyways, back to the article here. That may sound like a bold statement, but it's entirely true. Any white person, even the faintest knowledge of history, should curse themselves every single day for being what. Again, I wonder if Miss Goldstein here is actually white, and with a name like that, I would think she might be because Goldstein is Jewish, and now granted, even though Jews originally came in Israel and they might have a slightly darker tone, like for example, Eastern European Jews were white. Most American Jews are white. So could this be a bit of a self-deprecating, um, self-deprecation here? But anyways, she also asserted, "quote Diversity is indeed white genocide, and white genocide is exactly what the world needs more than anything else." Unquote. Here's one of the things I find kind of funny. Okay, so these people like Miss Goldstein. Now again, I know that I'm presuming here, which I shouldn't. For all I know, she could be a dark colored Jewish individual. Just going on the name alone, she's she's that is a Jewish surname, Goldstein, as I understand it. And they are predominantly white. But and if that is the case, if she is white and she's saying all this, and with people like her, people who have the white people have that same kind of mentality. I mean, I'm a little surprised they don't just going off themselves because they feel so much quote unquote white guilt, right? And not that I'm not advocating that they do this, mind you. I'm just pointing something out of if they think white people are Satan incarnate, right? Well, doesn't that mean that when they look in the mirror, that's what they're seeing? They think white people are Satan incarnate, and they are white. you know, you'd think that more of them would be, offing themselves. Just an observation. I mean, it's obviously more virtue signaling than anything else. Anyways, I do need to step away from the computer for a moment here, and I see that there's another comment you made there, Woody. But I do need to make some lighting adjustments here, so I'll be back. All right. So anyway, I'm back now. Let's see what you just said there, Woody. Perhaps I have a creative channel apart from Woody. Nah. So, anyway, getting back to the article here. Let's see. Anyway, the company still has racial quotas for its numerous productions. Company's Reimagine Tomorrow website states, quote, "We are committed to inspiring a more inclusive world by reimagining the way we tell stories and who tells them." Really, what these people want is they want apartheid. That's what they want. They want what happened in South Africa. They want apartheid. They want to punish white people for what white people did to their ancestors. That's essentially what it is. They claim it's all about diversity. Even when Martin Luther King was talking, when he talked about his "I Had a Dream," it wasn't. He never put it in a way that black or white should be over the other. Everybody hand in hand, equal. All right. Treat others as you would want to be treated, right? Let's see. Our intention is to broaden access and diversity in our industry by adopting inclusion standards across Disney General Entertainment and live action studio productions by the end of 2022. Of course, that must have come from we're well past 2020, with the goal of advancing representation in front of and behind camera in marketing and more, unquote. It then links to inclusion standards for ABC Entertainment, which state that 50% or more of regular and recurring written characters come from underrepresented groups, and 50% or more of regular recurring actors come from underrepresented groups, among other quotas. Mm-hmm. The thing is, though, this is just another form of racism, but it's a form of racism where it's kind of a it's a racism against white people. Racism is wrong no matter who the perpetrator or who the perpetrated are. Right. The company is also actively grooming park guests by allowing men to dress up in drag as women at the Bobidi boutique at Disney. Yeah, I saw the headline on here too. I didn't really read into it, but yeah, I've heard that too. A Disney employee named Nick, dressed in drag, was recorded greeting young children outside the shop back at the end of May. Two other male Disney employees wearing drag were also photographed greeting children back in August. Not only do they have male employees in drag greeting young children, but they are promoting the transgender ideology through decor put up throughout the parks, which is why they're losing a lot of money because a lot of parents, particularly those like a lot of the parents who'd be coming in from flyover country, right? They're not going to want to go to Disneyland if they're going to be having to put up with this. They feel that you're going to go after their kids with this stuff, you know. They won't give you their money. They'll go to places maybe that won't push the stuff like Knott's Berry Farm or something like that. In August, the company partnered with a man who dresses up in young girls' clothes in order to hawk a number of their products. Young girls' clothes. Okay. The company paid Sean Altman. Now, this is probably a different person, but there's another guy I know of named Sean Altman. You guys might remember him if any of you remember. Um, this is just kind of a side note here. If you guys remember Rockapella from Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, there was a guy in there named Sean Altman. This guy's obviously spelling his name a little different, so it's probably not the same. I don't believe it's the same guy, but still. To dress up as Minnie Mouse to sell cake-worthy Minnie Mouse dress and a Disney-branded Citizen watch, Sensational 6. Yeah, I saw that one. On top of all this evidence that points to the contrary of Iger's comments, a rumor surfaced at the end of July from WDW, I guess Walt Disney World Pro, noted that the Walt Disney Company has no intention to abandon its culture war agenda. In other words, they don't what they want. They want to get out of the spotlight is what they want. They want to subvert parents. They want to get back under the radar to try to get at the kids. They don't want the heat of the spotlight on them as they're doing this. They want to do it covertly, subversively. A source informed the Scooper, quote, a research subcontractor I know spoke to some brand people over at Disney, and the problem here is that you can't say out loud the drain has come in part because of the DEI, the agenda, the woke stuff that the company has done. You're not allowed to say it. If you say it, you will be let go. You will be silenced. You will be punished. You will be ostracized and put to the side. Unquote. Anyways, and as I said, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream and seeing if we get some more friendly people in here, that'd be appreciated. Quote, and if you can't openly talk about the real problems, how can you hope to fix them? The board is a problem. Iger is a problem. Key division heads are a problem, unquote, the source declared. No, there are people who are under the board. There are people rank and file who want Disney to be more aggressive. And they know they can't because the people up top understand that if they take such an aggressive stance, there's going to be consequences. You can't force people to buy something they don't want to buy. You can't force somebody. You can't force people to buy into something they don't want to buy into. Contrary to what some of these people believe. Walt Disney World Pro would also share information from another source explaining why Disney would not be disengaging from the culture war. Quote, the boycott avoidance of, in brackets, Bud Light in a consumer backlash movement is based on the fact that the product itself is indistinguishable from its main competitors, Miller Lite and Coors Light, in blinds and all available at the same distribution points, virtually side by side at retail with similar identical prices under normal circumstances. Yeah, obviously Miller Lite and Coors Light are smarter than Bud Light because they again stayed out of the they stay out of the culture wars. You know, quote. In other words, avoiding that beverage that's under fire is very easy because there is very little inconvenience to the light beer consumer. Unquote. The source shared. Walt Disney World Pro concluded, quote, Disney, on the other hand, avoiding Disney is a major inconvenience, so perhaps the folks at the Walt Disney Company assume consumers would be too burdened by trying to boycott. Well, that's not true because I'm sure, I can't say as much for other states, but I know like where I'm at, in California here, we have places like Knott's Berry Farm. You do have other, you have Knott's Berry here in California. Knott's Berry Farm. We have SeaWorld. We have Six Flags. I think Six Flags is another one that has multiple parks across the country as well. You have, you don't have to go to Disneyland, okay? If you want to go to a theme park, you can go to other theme parks. You can go to fairs. You can go to, other places that would also, cater to people. And so what they're saying about what the comparison they're making with the beers and stuff as opposed to Disney is it's not really entirely true because yes, for the beers, yes, they say it's easier because it's just a matter of okay, instead of drinking Bud Light, the person may decide they're going to drink Miller Lite or Coors Light. And I know, like, for example, from what I understand, Six Flags has parks in other parts of the country as well. Here in California, we don't just have a Six Flags, but we have, like, Knott's Berry Farm. We have a few others, and I'm sure every state has alternatives to Disney. They have alternatives to Disney Entertainment. They have alternatives to Disney theme parks. So that whole idea, if there are people at Disney who believe that people would be too inconvenient to try to boycott Disney, they're dead wrong because I think there a lot of people have boycott, and some people I actually know of somebody who's boycotted who basically stopped doing business with Disney, not necessarily over this, I believe, but because basically they felt the passes were too expensive or not worth it. Actually, no, I remember now. It was because Iger, once again, putting his foot in his mouth, basically told customers off, and this person, decided to basically, okay, you don't want my business? Fine. I won't give you my business. So, anyways, getting Six Flags are less of an experience from Disney parks. Maybe so. Maybe. Granted, maybe they're not as extravagant as Disney. However, some people might like the lack of extravagance. They're like if Disney's trying to portray itself as a family friendly company, right? And you have a lot of and you half your customer base is the traditional family. It's kind of like another issue that's been popping up. If you guys have seen that, the McDonald's commercial from over in the McDonald's Japan commercial that's been getting some heat lately, where a lot of people, and it was more the West that was criticizing it over a traditional family enjoying a meal at McDonald's. A father, a mother, and their child, and the daughter looked like the mother, enjoying a meal together. You had all of Western Twitter a buzz over it until they just got kind of like, because that particular ad was considered pretty wholesome. Okay, a family simply put a traditional family just enjoying a meal at McDonald's. So, but as I said, you alienate half your country. You alienate the people. If you just sit there and think of what they call flyover country, because Metal talked about this a little bit last night, I believe. I know he brought it up. I don't remember if he brought it up. If he brought it up during the show or not, but idea the coastal influence, right? How you have, like, particularly here in California and in New York, where the coastal regions where you do have more of a hard leaning left mentality being pushed more often than not. So yes, Disney may be more extravagant, JR, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody would want that extravagance. And if you're using that extravagance to push something that your customers, the ones who are actually putting the money into your hands, don't want to take part in, or don't want their kids to take part in, they will go elsewhere. And even if like at Six Flags or at some of these other parts, if maybe the experience isn't as extravagant, they'll still have a good time. They'll probably even have more of a good time, because even if it's not as extravagant, they don't have to worry about having something pushed on them or their kids that they don't want pushed on them or their kids. Yeah, too burdened by trying to boycott them, therefore they're not worried about it, unquote. On top of all this, when Iger returned as CEO to the Walt Disney Company, he made it very clear the company's immoral agenda and its engagement into the culture war was not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. Again, they want to get the spotlight off of them. They want to go underground and subvert parents. That's basically what Disney wants to do. He said, quote, "Do I like the company being embroiled in controversy?" Unquote. He then asked rhetorically of the crowd, quote, "Of course not. It can be distracting, and it can have a negative impact on the company. Yet, you don't want to be, that's the thing. They want to be able to push their agenda without being embroiled in controversy. They don't like the fact that a very hot spotlight is on them and is burning them to a crisp. Okay, so, quote, "And to the extent that I can work to quiet things down, I'm going to do that." Well, if you really want to quiet them down, then you should do a 180. You should stop trying to push this stuff altogether. That's the only way it's really going to get quieted down. I mean, parents are not stupid. They're not stupid. They're not as naive as you think they are. They know what's going on. They know what you're trying to do. Added Iger, quote, But I think it's important to put in perspective what some of these subjects are, and not just simply brand them as political. Unquote. When asked about the company's political position on attempting to stop a bill that prevented the teaching of sexual orientation and gender identity to children in grades kindergarten through third grade, that was the parents' right bill, what a lot of opponents had called the "Don't Say Gay" bill. Um, you know, Iger declared, quote, "This company has been telling stories for 100 years, and those stories have had a meaningful, positive impact on the world. And one of the reasons that they've had a meaningful, positive impact is one of our core values is inclusion, acceptance, and tolerance. And we can't lose that. We just can't lose that." Yeah, but I would think that Walt Disney's got to be turning over in his grave right now. You'd even be trying to push this stuff on kids. I think even Walt Disney himself has got to be. And as I said earlier, from everything I'd heard from some people, Walt Disney for his time was considered kind of left leaning to begin with. But even he can't necessarily agree with this. Given this evidence alongside the rumor, it's very difficult to not see Iger's comments as just PR talking points to try and get the company's immoral actions out of the press, which is basically the point I've been making throughout the whole article here. In other words, they want to get the spotlight off of them so they can more covertly and subversively get at the kids. However, while he wants to keep the bad press away, the company will still be full steam ahead in trying to undermine the fabric of the United States and destroying morality. Mm-hmm. Yep. What do you make of the latest report about Bob Iger wanting to quiet the noise about the company? Well, he wants to quiet the noise, but he doesn't want to really disengage the culture war. If anything, he wants to intensify it just more subversively. That's what I take from all this. So, anyways, that was that, and we are still going to try to get through all four of these, and even if we go a little beyond hour here, but I know I'm going to probably want to. I'm going to probably want to go through this stuff a little faster because I know we're already coming up on we're at 53 minutes, so I do always try to keep it around an hour, but we'll probably go a little longer tonight. So, anyways, Young Justice and the Spectacular Spider-Man producer Greg Weisman claims, "I've been striving for woke since long before I ever heard the term." Now, granted, what you have to understand, too, Weisman's career goes all the way back to the 90s because, yes, he's been a producer on Young Justice, Spectacular Spider-Man. He was also one of the main guys, the producers for Gargoyles back in the mid-90s. You guys remember that show? Article by Spencer McCooley, published this past Friday on September 22nd. Okay. Now I'm going to probably go through this one a little faster. Try to, anyways. In what appears to be a mix-up of definitions so baffling that it could only be properly summarized by Inigo Montoya, noted Young Justice and the Spectacular Spider-Man series producer Greg Weisman recently claimed that he has been, quote, striving for woke since long before I ever heard the term, unquote. So, what appears to be a mix-up of definitions. All right. Weisman, who some may also know as the creator of Disney's Gargoyle series, as I was just pointing out, made this declaration on September 20th via his personal Twitter account, retweeting a fan who put forth the rhetorical situation, quote, "Randos online, I can't believe the guy that made Gargoyles made Young Justice. He's gone woke. He's been corrupted," unquote, and responded to these imaginary critics with an animated GIF featuring the heads of the Young Justice versions of Nightwing and Batman superimposed over the dancing duo of Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum from 21 Jump Street. Weissman asserted, quote, "Seriously, I've been striving for woke since long before I ever heard the term." Quote, unquote, "Don't believe me?" Unquote. He then asked, quote, "Watch Gargoyles, read Captain Atom." Unquote. I've watched Gargoyles. Would I say, did he maybe push some left leaning talking points? Maybe a little bit, but not to the extreme people are today. Quote, "And I'm not alone," unquote, Weissman added. Quote, hashtag Star Trek was always as woke as anyone knew how to be at any given moment. Hashtag X-Men was always as woke as anyone knew how to be. Stan and Jack separately and together, woke. The list goes on and on. Well, okay, so he's taking it. So based on what they're saying here, Weissman is taking the word woke as meaning somebody who leans to the left ideologically, somebody who feeds more into the left's talking points, right, of any given time period. Back in the 90s, it was, of course, environmentalism, and it was kind of pushing, LGBT issues, but not to the extreme that we have today, right? So, but even in Gargoyles, you didn't have any, back in the 90s there, you didn't have like Gargoyles engaging in gay relationships. Okay, so it would appear that Greg Weissman's interpreting the term woke as meaning somebody who's pushing left leaning agenda, which is it's not necessarily the same as being woke. Woke is more of an extreme form of it. All right. However, rather than adulation, Weissman's proclamation was instead met with a wave of criticism, much of which was predicated upon the belief that the animation veteran had conflated the concepts of, quote, woke, empty, performative, and often insulting calls for inclusion, usually meant to advance a financial goal, and what would best be referred to as progressive, genuine attempts to promote messages of respect, kindness, and understanding. So yeah, that's kind of where I was going with it too. The idea is, I may have said it a little bit differently, but among this backlash, it would be only 2 tweets that would draw notable responses from the Star Wars Rebels executive producer. The first came from @Rando Art Lover, who, true to his name, aggressively pushed back, quote, "Why do you comic book guys have no bleeping idea what you're talking about?" Wow. I knew Weissman was a television producer, but I didn't know he was a comic book author. But then again, I guess they did make notice of that, mention that earlier. Actually, now that I think about it, yeah, I think I have seen his name when I've done some of this day in each history stuff. Let's see. Quote, you never know what you're talking about, unquote. He continued, quote, you just make bleep up constantly. It's like you're allergic to the truth. I know you know the difference between something being woke and being progressive. Quote, I know what I'm talking about, unquote, Weissman shot back. Quote, if people have perverted the original meaning of the word woke, why should I participate in that? Being woke means uh, waking the bleep up and opening your GD eyes to the reality around you. Who in their right mind would be against that? The second was made by Twitter user at GeneGen09181213, who, taken aback by what she ostensibly viewed as the creator's misunderstanding of the concept of woke, replied with quote, with due respect, Greg, I'm a big fan of Gargs, X-Men, Star Trek, etc. They weren't woke, not in the modern sense, at least, unquote. Mm-hmm. And that's again, that's quote, they were progressive media done right, unquote. She explained, quote, they promoted unity despite our differences. Most media labeled woke today doesn't do that. In turn, Weissman conceded, quote, fine, call it progressive. But I'd still argue that you are misusing the word woke. I'm not. Quote, and but I think it does go down to an argument of semantics here. Quote, and everyone is trying to do media right, he ultimately argued. Quote, who the heck sets out to do it wrong? It's a fiction, and there's a conspiracy. There's just good bleep and bad bleep. Yeah, so anyway, so we got through that pretty quickly. Basically, yeah, I agree. I think in Weissman's case, he's using the term incorrectly. I think he means that he's been progressive. Okay, woke is more like virtue signaling just for the sake of virtue signaling, just to look cool. Okay, and based on his previous works, I don't think Weissman was doing anything just to look cool. Okay, he was, he probably has tried to push certain progressive agendas in his work, but not to the detriment of it. So, anyways, we continue on here. Then we got a couple more articles. Like I said, we're going to probably go a little over tonight. Just want to do that. We're already over an hour. So, anyways, moving on to the next. This one. And we're going to try to go through these a little quicker here. YouTuber appears to defame Chuck Dixon as an anti-Semite and lead up to Rippaverse's quote-unquote Alpha Core release. Article by John F. Trent, published September 22nd, this past Friday, in the comic book section. So, Dane, a YouTuber who runs the channel Actual Fandom, recently appeared to defame Chuck Dixon as an anti-Semite as the Rippaverse is about to release Dixon's upcoming Alpha Core book. On X, the YouTuber wrote, quote, if you're someone who values the well-being of comics communities, I implore you to read Rippaverse comics. I implore you to read. Rippaverse Comics will soon publish a comic by former industry pro creator of Bane and Tim. Well, he meant to say Tim Drake, but he spelled it Time Drake. Chuck Dixon. It gets disturbing from there. Unquote. In the tweet, Dane takes issue with Chuck Dixon's creation of the comic series Alt Hero Q for Vox Day's Archhaven Comics. In an image he shared as part of his tweet, he writes, quote, he also worked with a publisher called Archhaven on a comic called Alt Hero Q, as in QAnon. The first arc is titled Where We Go 1, which refers to the Q conspiracist mantra of where we go one, we go all. Often shortened on social media as WWG1 WGA. He then goes on to provide summaries of the first couple of issues of the book. From there, he states, for those unfamiliar with the IRL, in real life QAnon, it is a belief that a vast conspiracy of Hollywood elite and every politician who isn't explicitly pro-Trump is engaged in acts involving children, ranging from an updated take on anti-Semitic blood libel narratives to the P word and satanic sacrifice. In a subsequent tweet, he also writes, QAnon absolutely promotes bigotry against Jewish people, being an updated version of the anti-Semitic quote-unquote blood libel, as well as LGBTQ people. So this guy Dane sounds like another SJW who's just screaming in the wind. It's also directly influenced several acts of domestic terrorism, including January 6th insurrection. This violates Kindle's policies. In a video upload going into further details, he asserts, quote, Q is anti-Semitic in nature just by virtue of being an updated version of the JQ, and it is bigoted against LGBTQ people. I made this graphic, and I also wrote a thing in parentheses here. He points to the above tweet that I'm explaining to you now, and apparently this is cancellation, I guess, but it's not really, unquote. Now, mind you, I do, as I was looking over the story today of what I was going to report on, I do believe that both Dixon and Chuck Dixon and Eric July have responded to this. I think there's an article that was done today in response to this article. We'll be going over that tomorrow. So just to give you guys a heads up on that. Anyways, as we continue on here, as I try to get through these as quickly as possible now. However, not only does he appear to be defaming Dixon, but he does indeed try to cancel him, as he shared in one of the images on Twitter. Quote, Chuck Dixon, who again is writing at least one issue of a comic book specifically advertised by its creator, Eric July, as appropriate for kids, features its QAnon comic on Amazon's Kindle platform, which you can read yourself for free with a Kindle Unlimited subscription. Alternatively, you could contact Amazon to ask if they're aware that they're selling a QAnon promoting comic with no age restrictions, just as they sell Vox Days comics and merch. So again, this sounds like another SJW trying to cancel Chuck and anybody associated with him. You know, This is absolutely an attempt to encourage his readers and viewers to contact Amazon and demand they stop selling Dixon's works, thus canceling him. Mm-hmm. Alt Hero Q is available to read in full for free on archaven.com. You can find the entire series here. All right. Official description states, quote, when federal agent Roland Dane is sent to Peru to escort a U.S. cabinet member, he has no reason to believe his assignment is connected in any way to his Treasury team's recent bust of a ring of amateur counterfeiters. But when the Secretary of State and his entourage is unexpectedly attacked, and the subsequent news reports of the attack bear no resemblance to the events he witnessed, Dane is forced to confront the shocking discovery that nothing in his world is quite what it appears to be. Alt Hero Q is an incendiary comic series that explores the mysterious phenomenon of QAnon. That's, I guess, according to this guy Dane here. Alpha Core number 1 is expected to release from Rippaverse sometime this fall. In an update on the company's website in August, Andrew Rodriguez stated, quote, Alpha Core number 1 is finalizing lettering and pre-press since that releases this fall. Dixon previously detailed the book stars a team of superhero cops who patrol the skies and streets of Forest Park in search of super creeps, weirdos, and villains. Boy, do they find them, unquote. Quote, it's full of action, unquote, Dixon continued. Quote, it's kind of a police procedural meets a superhero epic, unquote. What do you make of actual fandom's attempts to cancel Chuck Dixon in the lead up to the release of Alpha Core number 1? Another SJW, another delusional SJW who has nothing better to do with his time than pull this kind of garbage off. That's what I think. So, anyways, we do have one more article to go through. Let's see now. And this will be the last article for tonight. As I said, we will get to Chuck and Chuck Dixon and Eric July's response tomorrow, because there's an article, their response to what was said here. So what was said and done here. So, anyways, moving on to this last article here. Marvel Comics to relaunch the Ultimate Universe with new Ultimate Spider-Man series helmed by Jonathan Hickman. Article by Spencer McCulley, published September 23rd, 2023, in the comic book section. So here we go. So we're gonna go ahead and hit this up. So making a web swing for the fences in the now. One of the other things I want to note here is, of course, I know that Yellow Flash was also talking about this earlier, so that's part of the reason why I also hit this up. But anyways, making a web swing for the fences in the hopes of enticing readers back to their books, Marvel has announced that they will officially be reviving the Ultimate Universe, and like before, its debut will be led by everyone's favorite wall crawler. Problem is, though, from what I understand, that even in the main universe, there's from what, according to Yellow Flash mentioned on his report of this, there's actually quite a few people who are portraying Spider-Man. It's not just Peter Parker and Miles Morales anymore. It's like they got several people being Spider-Man. So, anyways, the unexpected return of the 1610 was first revealed on September 20th, courtesy of Marvel's official Twitter account. Quote, Jonathan Hickman's Ultimate Invasion limited series spawns an entire new Ultimate Universe, complete with a new quote-unquote Ultimate Spider-Man by Hickman, bracketed Jonathan, and Marco in brackets Cicchetto, unquote. The publisher unveiled to the public alongside a very simple teaser image, which featured just a spider-adorned U-shaped graphic with the text "Ultimate Spider-Man," quote unquote. Get more details next month at hashtag Marvel New York Comic Con. So that's the thing right there. Launched in 2000 with the original Brian Michael Bendis written and Mark Bagley illustrated Ultimate Spider-Man series, the Ultimate Imprint aimed to provide both an updated take on Marvel's roster of characters and an opportunity for readers to enjoy their stories without being overwhelmed by the publisher's then 70-year-long continuity. Sadly, Marvel editorial eventually got the best of itself and allowed Ultimate Universe's continuity to become overtly convoluted in its own right. Not only that, but ostensibly, in some effort to keep up the sense of the universe's ever progressing timeline, they proceeded to have many of the smaller quotes known Marvel heroes killed off and replaced with younger counterparts such as Jimmy Hudson becoming the new Wolverine, or Miles Morales taking up Peter Parker's webs after his death at the hands of the Punisher. As such, by the time the universe came to a definitive end in 2015 Secret Wars event, itself a casualty of Doctor Doom's multiversal machinations, the imprint had long been written off by fans as a shell of its former self. But though the 1610 itself ceased to exist, not all of its inhabitants shared its fate. As was, of course, the case with Crisis on Infinite Earths, too, with DC, if you guys remember that situation. Following the conclusion of Secret Wars, the 616 became home to a few ultimate refugees, including the evil version of Reed Richards, known as the Maker, the aforementioned Jimmy Hudson and Miles Morales, along with the latter's family, a small group of mutants consisting of Armor, Guardian, Mach 2, and Quicksilver, and Thor's hammer. Notably, it is thanks to the villain at the top of that list that the events leading up to new Ultimate Spider-Man series are currently playing out within the pages of the still ongoing Hickman-penned Ultimate Invasion crossover. Now, one of the criticisms that I heard that Flash has is how long will they let Hickman kind of just do his own thing before they start pushing him to take the story in particular directions? I guess that's something that they may want to, because they feel, I guess when as long as Hickman's writing it, things are okay. But if they don't allow him to just do his work, he may just get fed up with it and say screw it, Therein, the Maker, sick of constantly being thwarted by the universe's heroes and fully aware that he physically does not belong in the 616, sets out to recreate and return to the 1610. However, the disformed madman does so not with the intent of restoring everything to how it was. After all, this original timeline played out in such a way that he was considered a villain whose work must be stopped at all costs, rather than the omnipotent leader of men he considers himself to be. Yeah, I know that Yellow Flash, in describing the Maker, was something like it was like the alternate universe's version of Doctor Doom, basically. It's like if in DC if Batman of Earth 1 and 2 is equivalent to Owlman, then Reed Richards of 616 is the maker of 1610, I guess. So, anyways, to this end, upon his homecoming, the maker sets out manipulating major events from the original timeline in such a way that they would produce an outcome favorable to his maniacal plans to craft a perfect existence. Coming full circle, the first event villain interferes with takes place in a science lab in New York, whereat he prevents a young, bespectacled teenager from being bitten by a glowing green mutated spider. Peter Parker. With the universe's flagship hero nipped in the bud, history of the Ultimate Universe proceeds to unfold in a much different manner, replacing what was once a standard version of Earth with one divided up by various quote-unquote superclans whose geopolitical actions are completely directed by the Maker himself, all in the aims of keeping humanity on track to reach the next stage of their evolution. So this got a bit of high evolutionary aspects going on in it, I guess. It is this particular arachnid-related change from the Maker that begs a relevant question regarding the Ultimate Spider-Man relaunch. When it hits shelves, who exactly will be revealed to be wearing the webs? Peter Parker or Miles Morales? At current in Ultimate Invasion storyline, not only is Peter depowered, but Miles still resides in the 616, having defiantly rejected an offer from the Maker to accompany him back to their home universe. Of course, with one issue left in the miniseries left to go, absolutely anything could happen, from Peter being repowered to Miles becoming trapped in the 1610 following a hypothetical last-ditch effort to stop the Maker's plans. Thus, as it stands, it could be anyone from Peter to Miles to even a brand new hero who ends up donning the webs in the 1610. As an aside, it should be further noted that though Marvel is advertising the upcoming Ultimate Spider-Man as the official rebirth of the Ultimate Universe, the universe has already made a pair of canon appearances across Marvel's various comics. In the years since, it was erased by Doom and Molecule Man, rather. The first came in the second volume of the Bendis written Spider-Man, whose conclusion revealed that the universe was alive and well with its then recently revived version of Peter Parker standing shoulder to shoulder with the current team of Ultimates. The universe was later seen once more in 2020's Venom Volume 4, number 26, wherein the Maker is shown successfully activating a gateway back to 1610, which in his absence has become a desolate, superhero-less hellscape. Ultimately, no pun intended, with whether or not these events receive any mention or play into the events of either Ultimate Invasion or Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 3 remains to be seen. The final issue of Ultimate Invasion stands September 27th. So that will be this Wednesday, basically. All right, so there we go with that. We're done with the articles for tonight. We're coming up on an hour and a half here, so I'm going to have to hurry along here. So, in regards to like the wrestling news, let's see. On the WWE front, as some of you know, Matt Riddle was recently let go by the WWE. Let go by the WWE. You just won too many problems. There has been some talk that maybe he will possibly, he will possibly try to go back to UFC, but that has apparently been squashed as Dana White has basically said that he's not welcome back because he's just too much headache. According to him, well, actually, it wasn't that. It was that he can't pass a drug test. You basically have to, pass a drug 3 times a year in order to participate in the events, and he apparently can't pass drug tests, and that's what Dana White was pointing out, and in not and some colorful language with it as well. But anyways, also there has been some talk that The Rock may be showing up at this year's Crown Jewel, maybe, or one of the upcoming live events. Details are still a bit sketchy though. Let's see. Anyways, let me just. So now on tonight's episode of Monday Night Raw, coming to everybody from Ontario, from the Toyota Arena in Ontario, California. Dominic Mysterio is set to defend the NXT North American title against Dragon Lee. The Judgment Day will be defending the Unified Tag Team titles against former champs Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And then Bronson Reed will be taking on Otis of the Alpha Academy. So that's what's slated to happen on Raw thus far. And there's a big weekend going on here for AEW coming up as Wrestle Dream. Over this past weekend, of course, number of title change, and we already went over the stuff that went over last Wednesday. But on Friday's Rampage, the Elite defeated the Mogul Embassy members of Brian Cage, Toa Leona, and Bishop Khan to become the new Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag Team Championship. And on Saturday, Christian Cage, there was a 3-way match set up for the TNT title between Christian Cage, Darby Allin, and at the time the current champ, Luchasaurus, in which Christian Cage pinned Luchasaurus to become the new TNT champion. So those are some of the big things that came up over the weekend. Now coming up this Sunday, October 1st, from the Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, Washington, AEW will be having its Wrestle Dream event. Now, from what I understand, of course, it's supposed to be set up as a tribute to the late great Antonio Inoki. Matches signed for the show include, and what's said to be the main event, Bryan Danielson in a battle in what is said going to be the greatest technical battle in wrestling history. Bryan Danielson will be taking on Zack Sabre Jr. You also have Adam Page taking on Swerve Strickland. For the Ring of Honor and New Japan Strong Openweight title, Eddie Kingston will be defending the title against Ring of Honor World Television Champion Katsuyori, or not television, but Pure Champion Katsuyori Shibata. FTR will be defending the World Tag Team titles against Aussie Open. Aussie Open looks to add another title to their ever-growing legacy. Christian Cage will be defending the TNT title in the best 2 out of 3 falls against Darby Allin. Better Than You, baby, of Adam Cole and AEW the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championships will be on the line as Better Than You, Baby, of Adam Cole and AEW World Heavyweight Champion MJF will be defending against the Righteous. In a big six-man grudge match, Chris Jericho teams with the Golden Lovers of Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi to take on the Don Callis family of Konosuke Takeshita, Sammy Guevara, and Will Ospreay. Chris Statlander defends the TBS title against Julia Hart. And in a number one contender four-way match for the AEW World Tag, this is, of course, to set the next challengers to whoever wins the AEW World Tag Team match later that night. Hook and Orange Cassidy will be taking on the Young Bucks, who will also be taking on the Lucha Brothers, who will also be taking on the Guns. That's coming up this Sunday. And then, of course, as Impact Wrestling continues to make its way towards Bound for Glory, this past Thursday, of course, saw some interesting stuff as the 2-part 1,000th episode arc. This past weekend, this past Friday and Saturday, they had their Mid-South Mayhem event, 2-day event, in which they taped shows that would tape matches that will be coming up on Impact over the next few weeks. So with that, why don't we go ahead and start wrapping this up, as now we've gone well over what I intended, but okay, we can always try to. But with that, today being Monday, September 25th, 2023, let's take a look back at this day in Niche history. History! All right, so anyways, first off, I'd like to wish a happy 60th birthday to actor and voice actor Tate Donovan. Happy 60th birthday to Tate Donovan, who, of course, provided the voice of Hercules in the Hercules franchise, as well as House of Mouse, following the 1997 Hercules animated movie. He also provided the voice of Gobu in the Legend of Tarzan episode, Tarzan the Enemy Within. So happy 60th birthday to actor and voice actor Tate Donovan. And there's the guy right there. With that, moving on to the next piece of niche here, we go back 30 years ago to 1993. As on this date in 1993, Magic Bus's Big Wars Red Zone Divine Annihilation premiered in Japanese theaters on this date back in 1993. So 30 years ago today, Magic Bus's Big Wars Red Zone Divine Annihilation premiered in Japan on this date 30 years ago. And finally, on this date, just 10 years ago today, on this date 10 years ago today, the 5th and final issue of Dungeons & Dragons Cutter went on sale from IDW on this date back in 2013. This date 10 years ago, back in 2013, the 5th and final issue of Dungeons & Dragons Cutter from IDW went on sale on this date. $3.99 was the cover price with a 28-page count. So there you go. So I thank everybody for being here tonight. We'll be back here with more niche news tomorrow. Also, don't forget this Friday, I'll have RJ Carter with me as we will be looking at comics that went on sale in December 1939. This week, focusing on Centaur comics. So with that, I hope everybody enjoyed the show, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.